All right, guys, we spent the last several weeks making inferences from sample proportions, sample means, sample standard deviations. Now we're going to go with two sample proportions and then later two sample means and two standard deviations. So here we go. All right, this is the kind of problems you're going to be looking at, or the kind of stuff you're going to be testing. The first thing says test the claim that when people in one group are given each 4 quarters, while people in another group are given a dollar bill, the group given a $1 bill is less likely to spend the money. So two different groups, there'll be two sample proportions, and so we're studying one sample against the other. The second one, test the claim that the proportion of children who contract polio is less for children given a Salk vaccine than for children given a placebo. So again, two different groups, two different proportions. And the last one, test the claim that the mean body temperature of men is different from the mean body temperature of women. Again, two different groups, two different proportions. We're going to see how we compare the two proportions together. All right, notation. You got to know these things. Some of y'all still don't know these. These have not changed. All right, ever since we've been doing this stuff. But P1 is, let me get change colors here. There we go. P1 is your population proportion of sample 1. N1, the size of the sample of sample 1. X1, the number of successes in sample 1. P hat, the sample proportion from sample 1. Q1 hat is Q hat from sample 1. The corresponding notations also apply. P is the population proportion. N is the sample size of the whole thing. X2 is the number of successes in sample 2. P hat 2, sample proportion from sample 2. So if it has a 2, it's from sample 2. If it has a 1, it's from sample 1. Everything else, they mean the exact same thing they have the whole entire year. Just have 1 and 2 to tell you what sample they're from. Pooled sample, this is a new one. If you see P bar, that means the pooled sample proportion. All we're going to do is we're going to combine the two samples together. We're going to add the successes and the successes over the sample size and the sample size, and that gives you the pooled sample proportion. Pooled, P-O-O-L-E-D. And Q bar is going to be 1 minus P bar, just like Q hat is 1 minus P hat. All right, so pooled sample proportion. Requirements, there are 2 of them. They have to be from 2 independent simple random samples. They can't overlap, so they're completely different, and they're from SRSs. Number 2, for each of 2 samples, the number of successes is at least 5, and the number of failures is at least 5. Okay, test stat. That's what we're going to be doing in class a lot. For HO, and this is going to be our HO every time we do one of these 2 proportions. We're going to say the 2 proportions are equal. We're going to try to prove, not try to prove, our null hypothesis is going to be that the 2 proportions are equal. And our test statistics can be found right here. That's on your formula page that you have, so you probably don't need to write that down, but if you want to write it down, that's what you're going to use all day tomorrow. It's a biggie. All right, that's a pretty big proportion. Now, if we're going to assume that these 2 are equal to each other, that means when I do this part right here, if I do P1 minus P2, if they're equal to each other, that's going to give me 0 like every time. Okay, there it is right there. It's going to give me 0. So really, that's going to be the numerator, that's going to be the denominator, and I'll show you one. Testing 2. We're still going to use p-values, and we're going to get that. It says all molecular value by technology, thank goodness. Critical values, we're going to do that too. And because we're doing proportions, we're going to use z's. We're going to use the normal distribution because we're back to doing proportions again. All right, confidence interval. We're going to do confidence intervals as well as hypothesis tests, and this is how we're going to find it. That was our null hypothesis, basically. And we're going to take the samples, and we're going to subtract the p's, add the e, subtract the e, just like we always did way back in the day. Okay, so here's how you find the e, the margin of error. You take the z-score, and then you multiply by standard deviation. That's the standard deviation of the pooled sample, by the way. All right, an example. All right, do people having different spending habits depending on the type of money that they have? 89 undergraduates were randomly assigned to 2 groups and were given a choice of keeping the money or buying gum and mints. Now, here's the deal. One of the groups was given a dollar bill and one was given change or 4 quarters. So the claim is that the money in large denominations or the dollar bill is less likely to be spent relative an equal amount in many smaller denominations. Okay, so are you more likely to hold on to money if you have bigger bills? I think we can find out, yes. We're going to use a 0.05 sig level. Here's what we found with the summary statistics. The first group, sample 1. This is how many people were in the group. This is how many spent the money, just 12 out of 46 when they gave them a dollar bill. If they gave them 4 quarters, there were 43 people in that group, and 27 of them spent the money. All right, so quite a few more spent the money, and the sample's even smaller. So my p hat for the first group is there. My p hat for the second group is there. This is the pulled p, because you just add the two numerators, add the two denominators. There's your pulled p right there, which is a big deal. Okay, requirement, throw 89 people in it. So 46 and 43, it's independent random samples. Because 34 did not spin it, 27 did, 12 who did. They're big, all the numbers are bigger than 5. So we're good to go with the hypothesis test. All right, step 1, claim money's larger denominations like to be spent. So our ho and ha is always our first thing we do. The ho is always going to be P1 equals P2. That's going to be our ho the whole time. And our ha is right here. The first group we're going to say, which is the one who got the dollar bill, is going to be the proportion of what they spent will be less than the proportion of those who got the 4 quarters. So that's what we're testing. That's the claim, which is the ha, by the way, which is a big deal for our sentence at the end. All right, significance level alpha is 0.05. We're going to use a normal distribution. So here's all the things I need, all the numbers that I need. My p hat for both samples, my pulled p and my pulled q. And I put them in. There's my test stat formula. I plugged everything in here, punched it all in, and got negative 3.49 as my test stat. Now, we're using a 0.05 sig level, and so when I go to my technology, find out what my z-score is, and remember it's a left tail test because it was P1 is less than P2, I get this sig level right there, or a critical value. I get right here, negative 1.645. Now my test stat is way over here, negative 3.49, which is definitely in the rejection zone, so you know what that means. Also, the p-value is low. I didn't say anything about that because, on purpose, but it's low. It's 0.002, which is less than our alpha. Remember, p is low, you reject HO. So I'm going to reject the null. Here's my sentence. There's sufficient evidence to support the claim, because I rejected the null, that people with money in large denominations are less likely to spend relative to people with money in smaller denominations. It should be noted that the subjects were all undergrads, and care should be taken before generalizing subjects the results to general population. So basically we just studied undergrads, which have different spending habits than grads for obvious reasons. Okay. We can also construct a confidence interval to do this kind of problem, and that's what we're about to do right here. One word of caution, the confidence interval uses standard deviations based on estimated values of the proportions, so the confidence interval might be a little bit different from the hypothesis test, which is what we found out last chapter. Let me show you one real quick and we're done. All right, construct a 90% confidence interval estimate of the difference between the two population proportions. Okay, so what does the result suggest about our claim about people spending large denominations versus small denominations? Okay, I've already shown you the formula for E, and there it is again. So all I did is I took all this and I plugged it in. The 1.645 came from my 90% confidence. Punched in my calculator, my normal inverse norm to get 1.645. Plugged everything in I needed, and I got that error, margin of error right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it and subtract it to my p hat minus p hat. All right, so I'm going to do my p hat minus p hat, add it, which I did here, p hat minus p hat, subtract it, which I did there, and this is always going to be the middle of your confidence interval, because what's going to happen here? Well, let's look at our two numbers. I'm saying the differences in the two proportions is somewhere between, I'm 90% sure it's between negative 0.528 and negative 0.206. Now, my null hypothesis was that these were the same. If they are the same and I subtract them, I should get 0. Now look at my confidence interval. I'm 90% sure or confident that 0 is not in that interval, which means because it does not include 0, there is a significant difference between the two proportions, okay, which means there's a pretty big difference because the difference is not 0 in there anywhere. So because 0 is not in there, there is sufficient evidence to support the claim that money in large denominations is less likely to be spent. I hope that makes sense, what we just did. So there's two ways to do it. We're going to do both tomorrow and the next day, and we'll be fine. All right, so I'll see you in class. See you tomorrow.